Say hello to the Ride1UP Revv1 hardtail. The full suspension model was our Moto-Styled e-bike of the year. Does the more economical version still stack up well in our testing? Let's find out in this review. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Griffin with EBR, and as a reminder, you can help out our channel by subscribing, and if you end up wanting to buy one of these bikes, by using our links in the video description below. Now, let me tell you all that the Revv1 hardtail has going for it. Now, the big draw will start with its looks. I mean, simply put, this is a badass looking ride that'll make people ask the question, wait, is that a motorcycle or an e-bike? Ride1UP has crafted an awesome machine with its sleek frame, mag wheels, and that big old headlight up front. But what will really get people excited is to learn how easily this thing rides on its motor, and then a sense of shock will set in when you learn about its low price tag. The 52-volt, 750-watt Bafang hub motor spits out 95 Nm of torque and can seriously blaze a trail on city streets. There's even enough tread on the tires that'll make for a fun ride on flatter dirt roads. Like always with Ride1UP models, you are happy with the spec you get, but you love the price that you pay for it. This hardtail version has an MSRP at $1,595, which is a solid $600 less than the full suspension model. Now, the main differences between the two bikes boil down to a more modest fork and battery setup here on this hardtail version, but it actually has the more versatile tire and it keeps a lot of the other same key componentry, so let's run through everything that you get on it really quickly. We covered the motor, but you also get a 780 watt-hour battery to supply your power that is tucked away in the top of the frame right here, and a simple single-speed drivetrain on a KMC chain. These particular tires are the Kenda Crusade 20 by 4 inches with impressive grip and flat protection, and you don't have to worry about knocking your wheel out of true thanks to those magnesium wheels. You get a set of 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes, and while our test bike has 180mm rotors, Ride1UP recently just upped the rotor size to 203mm for even better performance. And then there's a good amount of comfort here from the 100mm fork up front, as well as the extra large and cushioned cafe-style saddle. Up top, there is a 720mm handlebar with 120mm of rise. There is a twist grip throttle and a very large 3.5-inch display, which is pretty sleek looking, to be honest. Now, I'm still on my personal crusade to eliminate bar-based battery readouts from the e-bike world, but I'm gonna take the good with the bad on this display and point out that I really actually like the power meter function here, and that's very helpful for knowing how hard you're pushing the motor. Finally, you get a handful of accessories with fenders, a headlight, and some taillights. Now, the headlight has both a high and low beam function that you operate from the cockpit, right next to the horn that you have on board too, and the Revv has a bunch of cool accessories that you can add on optionally. You can put on either a utility rack or a passenger kit. You can even turn this gap in the middle of the frame's diamond into a storage cage, or you can run a dual battery setup if you want to get tons and tons of mileage. So that covers all the stuff on the Revv, or all of the options that you have for it, but let's move on to talk about how it did in our testing. Ride1UP chose to spec the Revv with 4-piston hydraulic brakes on 180mm rotors. I like the choice of 4 pistons instead of 2 here for a bit better grab on that rotor, and you don't always see that for under $2,000. Now, to test this setup, I rode the bike up to 20 miles per hour before stopping, then measuring the distance, and I repeated this 3 times for an average. The overall result was a solid 22 feet 10 inches. Now, that is about a foot beyond the current average of all the e-bikes that we've tested, but reinforcements are on the way. We recently learned that all the Revv models are being bumped up to a standard 203mm rotor. So even better brake scores are likely on the horizon, where we've seen this type of upgrade get a foot or two better of a result in the past. So scores aside, the LBS brakes here just do a solid overall job with performance. The bike's lower center of gravity, courtesy of those 20-inch wheels, gives you a very easy to balance feeling. So even when you hit the brakes, you feel comfortable and in control basically at all times. The Revv1 ships as a Class 2 e-bike, but since I think that a lot of people will ride it for street use, I tested both its Class 2 and Class 3 speeds in our speed test. Let's head out there now and see how it did. All right, this is the Class 2 speed test for the Revv1 HT. Right now I can feel the weight of the e-bike. I mean, it's definitely a heavier ride. Just going about 9.5 miles per hour right now, but we'll pick that motor on and see what happens. Moving to pedal assist 1, you can hear it wake up and just start humming to life. Gives a good, nice bit of acceleration here in the first pedal assist level. Not abrupt, not jarring in any way, and just kind of helps you slowly build and climb upwards of just about 15 miles per hour. I don't have any gearing, it's a single speed e-bike, and I'm barely pushing on the pedals, just basically keeping that cadence sensor activated. About 15.2 miles per hour, moving up into PAS2 now. And as you can see, it's rushing ahead all the way up to 19.3 miles per hour. Slowing down a little bit, let's go ahead and pick it into PAS3. It's kind of more of the same, giving me a little bit more juice. You can kind of see the power readout on the display there. Now, I've already hit the 20.2 mile per hour limit, so I mean, nowhere else to go. It's gonna get pretty flat from here on out. Just kind of straddle that 20 mile per hour line as it's sticking to the class 2 speeds. So yeah, class 4, class 5, everything's topping out around the same spot, 20.1 miles per hour. So a little bit different in acceleration, I think, if you're kind of like from a slower stop, but as you can see, I mean, PS2 through 5, not a ton of difference, but let's see how the speeds translate in class 3 settings. All right, we're gonna do this again now in class 3 speed settings, see how quickly this thing can run. Move it up into PAS1. Kind of similar experience there. The motor has about a half a second delay or so that kicked that up into the first level, but very gradual assist, good amount of push from the rear hub motor. And once again, straddling a similar line up to about 15.2, 15.3 miles per hour. Moving over into PAS2 now. I mean, there's definitely like some noise to it. You can hear it get a little bit louder as you start going faster, but I think it's going to make some really light work. Up to 19.6 miles per hour. See what PS3 is like now. We are off and running, and I mean, it's an absolute blast. So upwards of 23.8 miles per hour. Into 24.5. Moving to PS4, I mean, we're doing 26 without breaking any. I mean, this is just 27.6. Move up one last time, PS5. As you see, we're hitting and holding 28, 28.3. No problem at all, giving us full motor power. And that was fast. For context, usually on the same speed course, I usually have to slow down before I can even hit PAS5, but I was already zooming right through it before we hit there. I mean, this bike's got some serious acceleration and serious speeds in class 3 levels, and it is a whole lot of fun. But let's talk more about that in studio. All right, this is the 0 to 20 throttle test on the Rev1. On your mark, get set, go. I mean, the acceleration is pretty rapid. And 20. Yeah, that's pretty quick. Okay, seriously, the acceleration on this bike is a lot of fun, and I can't understate that. But let's recap those results for a minute. With no motor help, it goes at 9.6 miles per hour just using a casual pedal. Now, in its class 2 settings, PAS1 takes you to 15.2 miles per hour, then to 19.3 miles per hour in PAS2. From there, each of PAS3, 4, and 5 hit the 20 mile per hour mark for me. The main difference between them is just the overall acceleration you get in each level. Now, things started out very similarly in the class 3 test, with the motor going up to 15.3 miles per hour in PAS1, and then in PAS2 it did 19.6 miles per hour. But from here, we saw a much better distribution of speed, going up to 24.5 miles per hour in PAS3, and 27.3 and 28.5 in PAS4 and 5 respectively. This thing is a blast to ride around on, and when I say blast, I mean it will blast off on you. The handling for those speeds is great though, as it's a nicely balanced bike, and the wide tires give you the ability to ease into turns and maintain balance and control. There is clearly a better speed distribution in class 3, but I still think there is some room for improvement here, as it still kind of clusters together a bit at the top between 3, 4, and 5. I think the only other thing on my wish list would be to tie the throttle speed into the PAS speed limits on those lower levels. A lot of people are not going to be pedaling this bike. It's not what you get that Moto-Style for, so that would allow for a bit more control. But in general, I think this bike delivers a very speedy and fun experience that people will enjoy. Now, Ride1UP's website didn't give specifics for range expectations for the hardtail model. It just simply states that the Revv will get between 30 and 60 miles depending which bike and which battery you choose. So we had our expectations for the floor, but we were eager to see what the ceiling would be. So we did a couple of range tests, one on PAS5 and again on PAS1 to find out how far it can go. And I was very impressed with what we got. The Revv1 ended up going 33.57 miles on our max power test and 43.98 miles on our minimum power test. And both of those were done at class 2 speed settings. Both are really good scores for a 750 watt motor with a 780 watt hour battery. Since I helped out on the low PAS range test, I had two thoughts to add here from my extended time in the saddle. First, that's a ton of miles and more than I was expecting from the Revv hardtail at first glance, given that it has a faster rate of speed in the lower PAS settings, which usually leads to less mileage. So yeah, that 44 mile result is terrific. The high power result was nice too. The hardtail may not sport the same size battery as the FS model, but it has some better efficiencies like less weight, and the lack of rear suspension means you're going to be losing less momentum into the shock absorption. And then finally, of course, the hardtail has a 25 amp controller versus the 35 amp controller of the FS. It's a better pairing for this particular bike that helps preserve your range. As a final thought, I think the padded saddle, handlebar, and suspension were very, very comfortable, but pedaling for that many miles can be a bit tough with this wider frame. I'd embrace a little bit of throttle usage from time to time as to not get tired legs with the shorter leg extension that's a little bit wider than most. If you've ever seen an EBR video before, you know we love to see how e-bikes can climb hills. And our beloved Hellhole, which is a test hill of 1/3 of a mile long and 12% average grade, is the perfect challenge to any e-bike motor. I'm gonna pass it off to Justin to show you how it did out on the hill.
We are now on the Ride1UP Revv1. This is their hardtail version on this moped-style e-bike. We're gonna see how it does. It's so far climbing pretty good, right about 14. You know, holding pretty strong right around 14 miles an hour through that first section, down to 13, high 12s, 12.4, so 11, probably about 11.6 was the lowest through that first section. The motor does have a little bit of whine to it, nothing out of the ordinary. I'd say it's kind of right around average. I'll let you listen to it on this next section through the steep, punchy hill. So I held the speed really nice, so down to 12 miles per hour. Other than being crazy comfortable, it's just kind of fun to, you know, throttle around. I'm curious to see if there's any difference between this and the full suspension model on the results and how it compares to other kind of moped style bikes. So let's go to the tape and see how it does. Okay, we are on the Revv1 pedal test now. Moped style e-bike, not a pedal bike. So I kind of judge it by how easy it is for me to pedal. So I'm pedaling very soft. I'm not pushing much on this. You know, you don't get leg extension at all. So seeing if the motor's powerful enough to get me up without doing much. So through that section, it only dipped about 12.6. So really powerful feeling so far. You can hear the motor about the same on throttle. So there is some noise there. We'll see how it does through the last punchy climb. I'll let you listen. So, I mean, blew through that section, 13.6 miles per hour. Again, I'm just soft pedaling, kind of moving the pedals is all. And so yeah, if you do want to pedal instead of just throttle, these results are gonna be pretty good. Again, curious to see how this compares against the full suspension model, but overall, great result.
So the Revv1 crushed it going up the hill as we kind of expected it to. It made it to the top on throttle in just 1 minute and 14 seconds to the tune of a 14.7 mile per hour average, while the pedal test went even better, making it to the top in 1 minute 9 and increasing the average to 15.7 miles per hour. It is in the top tier of all e-bikes to go up the hill on just the throttle, and it's maybe in the second tier when it comes to pedaling. Simply put, there are few hills you won't be able to zoom straight to the top of. Enjoy flying to the top and passing other cyclists on your way up. Now, since Justin asked the question of how this was going to compare to the FS's hill result, it was a little bit slower by 9 seconds on the throttle and 7 seconds on the pedal test. I'm going to probably chalk that one up to the 25 amp controller on the hardtail here versus the 35 amp controller of the FS. Simply put, it just can't draw as much battery power as the FS can, so it's a slight trade-off of the surprisingly awesome battery life that you get on this model that I mentioned before. But it isn't trading away too much since you're still looking at a top performing hill charger either way. Our last test doesn't really have any data to go over, but rather we're just here to focus on the overall experience. Let's go out for one last ride to talk about quality. All right, so when you talk about ride quality, there's a number of different directions you can kind of go with that topic. You can be talking about handling, you can be talking comfort, or just the overall solid feel to it. And I think in all those different regards, the Revv1 does a really good job at providing good quality, especially for the the value you're getting for the dollar that you spend here. But let's kind of take it point by point. So let's talk about sizing and comfort. Ride1UP says that the Revv will fit riders from 5'2" up to 6'4". I gotta be honest, I think you can probably go above or below those marks just fine. On your left, Moto-style e-bikes like this one, I mean, as long as you're good with the reach and you can kind of handle the overall weight of them, I think you're fine to ride it. The leg extension is never ideal, but that's part of the styling. It leans into throttle usage and provides a really good time in that regard. But I mean, overall it's pretty comfortable. You're fairly upright. I like this handlebar. It's got good grips on either side. The riser bar, it's very easy and comfortable to control, especially thanks to those 4-inch wide Kinder Crusade tires. I actually like this tire a lot, especially with the chunkier tread it has to it. The full suspension model of the Revv has a smoother CST tire. I got a little bit of chunk. I like to cut across, dirt lots and gravel areas fairly frequently when I ride, so a little bit of extra security is always nice. And then, of course, as we're talking comfort, you do have a 100mm suspension fork up front. It's a really good job. I think just in general, I think of the Revv series as comfortable e-bikes. Is the full suspension one more comfortable with its upgraded fork and rear shock? Yes, it is, but that does not make this one uncomfortable at all. This is still very comfortable. I mean, the seat that I'm riding around on, I've done stretches of 25 miles in a single shot, and I'm comfortable the whole time, especially just the ability to kind of scoot back or scoot forward when I need to. It's just really, really nice. And then, last but not least, let's just talk about motor engagement. So, on this version of the Revv, the hardtail version, it's got a 25 amp controller, a 52 volt system. I mean, it's got a lot of punchiness to it. That's a lot of fun. I'm just casually pedaling in PES1 right here, but kind of show you if you want to really dial it up and put it to PES5, just how quick that acceleration can go. A little bit of light pedaling, but I mean, it's off to the races very quickly, and it's just an absolute blast. It's a very good, solid ride, good overall system. I think there's a couple of things, I've noticed sometimes when I use the throttle, it'll go above 20 miles per hour briefly for a few seconds. I've seen it go up to like 24 miles per hour, then it realizes it needs to back down. So there's going to be a few fine-tuning things they could do in terms of the engagement on that side. But overall, I mean, Moto-style e-bikes like this one, they kind of have a certain look that sets a certain expectation for being just really fun and really fast, and the Revv absolutely delivers in that regard. And as a final note, let's talk value. I feel like the hardtail version here provides jaw-droppingly good value. For all the Revv has done across the performance tests, I'm still shocked that the MSRP is just $1,600. This thing really is kind of like having a light motorcycle, but it can be had for a fraction of the cost on a really cool looking ride. It just nails the aesthetic, and the paint job is solid on our gray frame, while the moss green option is stellar too. All around, it feels like a quality machine at a fantastic price. So with the Revv1 HT, what you see is what you get. And just look at it. It looks awesome. So what I'm basically saying is you get a whole lot of awesome. The motor is a blast, providing fast speeds and surprisingly good battery life. It's also a hill climbing champion, and you'll do all of this with serious comfort on this saddle and with that fork. Just enjoy the throttle a bit more to make sure that your legs stay in the comfort zone. The overall setup from the wheels and tires to the handlebar and just the overall dimensions of the ride give it terrific handling. The mag wheels and big headlight are surprisingly not common on all similarly priced moto e-bikes, and honestly, they should be. If you're gonna do the style, then do the style, you know? And of course, let's circle back to price again. I am a very budget conscious consumer, and whenever I'm buying something in life, I'm aiming to get something that gives me the most for my dollar. And I don't think any similarly styled e-bikes out there give you more for less. The only issue I think I had with this review is the decision that lies ahead of me about whether we need to take the Best Moto Award from the full suspension model and give it to the hardtail one here because it is such good value. But that's a decision for us to figure out another day. For now, just know that for either of the available Rev 1 models, we think they are an absolute hit, and if you feel this bike is packing what you've been looking for, then I'm pretty confident you'll be happy with the decision to get one. Thank you for watching. You can find more stats and data on the written review down in the video description below. If you want to buy a Rev 1, please use our pricing link to support the EBR team at no extra cost to you. And of course, for all things e-bike, make sure you subscribe. I am Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and I will see you on the next review.